Jump into questions here. Start with Joe Bettner of the Norman Transcript.
Alex, just with what you guys have got going against a running attack that TCU has, I'm curious what you guys have kind of made. I know I asked you about this a few weeks ago, but what have you made of kind of the strides you've made, especially with Texas, as far as your run defense?
No, I think there's been some good clips of video, and just in terms of being sound in our run fits. The way offenses these days run with the option to throw the ball oftentimes in the RPO game, and obviously the quarterback to keep it as a variable in that, or hand the ball off. It's very difficult to have extra guys everywhere you need them. And so, for TCU's, run game, that's very evident across the board. You got to make sure that you're in a position to not just have numbers, but also have angles. That's another critical piece as you go through, quote unquote option type attacks. Is you got to make sure that it's not just numbers. You got to make sure that you're in a position to defeat blocks with the appropriate angles, so that you can have the leverage to make tackles in space. Because ultimately, that's what you're charged to do is make tackles in space, whether it's the running back or the quarterback carrying the football, because the extra guy's probably in coverage, right? And so, no, I think there's been some good clips of video, but you also see at times how quickly what could otherwise be a short game turned into a long game, because you don't have that second wave of guys as they're trying to defend someone in coverage. And so it really flattens you out as a defense and makes it very difficult. They do a nice job of all those different elements, and so be a real challenge for us.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, let's go to Ryan Aber, the Oklahoman, and then Eric Bailey.
Yeah, Alex, I know you faced a tough tight end matchup a few weeks ago in Charlie Kolar, but I wanted to ask you about the other side with Austin Stogner on the offensive side. How difficult is a player like that can be so versatile and obviously is a matchup nightmare, I think, for defensive coordinators? How difficult is that type of guy to prepare for?
Yeah, and you see it at our level, and you obviously see it at the next level as well. I mean, the multiplicity, whether they're split out wide, or attached to the formation, the ability again to put hands on you in the run game and create a matchup situation there if they're on the defensive back. But then from the athleticism standpoint, to put a linebacker on them, not overly responsible on your part either. And so. So much of that is, you try to evaluate it in terms of, okay, where do you have the advantage? And to your point, obviously, there's very few instances where you do. One of the things that we talk about in coverage is, the height advantage isn't at the line of scrimmage. The height advantage is at the back end of the route. Now, the issue being, again, for these matchups with tight ends is their advantage at the line of scrimmage from a blocking standpoint is their physicality. So you gotta be smart in terms of your ability to get into kind of a scrum with them at the line of scrimmage, because in the run game, that may be one that you'd rather not be engaged. Kind of. I don't want to use it, I guess, run around, but kind of play more space, make him kind of come chase you as opposed to immediately engage with the guy. But conversely, in the pass game, at the line of scrimmage, at the snap of the football, is when you don't have the distinct disadvantage from a height standpoint, because they don't throw a fade at the LOS. They do that downfield. And so, that's something over the years, going back to the, Stanford, for instance, comes to mind kind of in our past. But, with Stogner, I mean, we see it every single day a lot of times you say you give up inches, in some respects at certain positions, you give up a foot. An advantage at the back end of that thing, being a foot taller is one that, a lot of these guys are going to try to take advantage of. But the thing with Stogner, as much as anything, is it's not just saying, okay, I'm taller than you. It's the skill set in terms of when the ball's in the air. I mean, that's when it gets really unique, and you see guys playing at an elite level. And obviously Stogner is one of those guys that, and we see him every day, and just, incredibly impressed with him. And we had a difficult tight end to defend this week as well.
Appreciate it, Alex.
Yeah.
Let's go to Eric Bailey of the Tulsa World, and then Jason Kersey.
Hey, Alex. Isaiah Thomas was here when you arrived at OU. He comes from a school in Tulsa that really isn't rich in football tradition. As a coach, is it more difficult to find players like him who don't play for a high school powerhouse, or have a schedule against top teams, or just talent just stand out during the recruiting process?
Well, Isaiah just walked in here, so I'm not going to say anything positive about him. No, I think, you're always constantly doing your homework, and the thing for, individuals in high school, and it may not be, come from a prominent program or as prominent as maybe some other places. The big thing is obviously flash on film. I mean, there's in this day and age, the years of not being able to find guys are kind of come and gone. Now with that, obviously you got to do your homework, and they got to put the necessary clips of video on film that to kind of spark your interest early on, especially if they're not at one that, maybe you haven't seen as much as a freshman or sophomore, some of those things that you go by a school so many times when they have a prospect year in and year out. And so that's something just a responsibility as a coach, that you're constantly obviously evaluating the guys and making sure that that's not an asterisk on a guy just because he may not be at a more prominent school. What's your zip code shouldn't dictate whether or not, and what the dividing line in your town is, and that's the school that you go to, shouldn't dictate whether or not you have an opportunity to be an elite football player. But no, I'm glad we got Isaiah, and certainly would like to have more like him.
Thanks, Alex.
Let's go to Jason Kersey of The Athletic, and then Bob Prisbillo.
Hey, Alex. I'm just curious, with you being a defensive guy, and Gary Patterson having this reputation as being such a great defensive mind, do you have a relationship with him? Have you studied him through the years? And is he a guy that you sort of look up to?
It is, and I don't have a relationship with Coach Patterson, but is even to this day, it's one of the first films that we I watch on Sundays. After we watch our own, is okay, who's TCU playing and how they're playing defense. Obviously, this week you spent so much time on obviously their offense, but no, that's one that I watch every week. And if we're talking about like opponents, I'm watching how they defended them, and that's a respect factor there. That certainly we have as a staff, and me personally, as you asked the question, having in Coach Patterson. I was at Wyoming years ago in the Mountain West Conference, when they were still in the Mountain West, and so seeing it, I guess, firsthand goes back to that. But no, he's one of the best in the game and has been for a long, long time, and the consistency behind what he does. And I think it's a great visual also is you believe in the system, you commit to a system. And being willing, obviously, to adapt over time, and I think that probably puts him in a very small category of guys and be able to do it so consistently for so long. So no, that immense respect for him as obviously a head coach, but certainly as a defensive mind.
Thanks, Alex.
Okay, Bob Prisbillo with Sooner Scoop, and then Mason Young.
Alex, last week you said best leaders have to be the best players too. Wonder where Pat Fields fits into that through the first 4 games. Fans notice all his mistakes, but then you see his 110 combined snaps last week. So where does he fit in, and how does he play through the first 4 games?
Yeah, I think several of our guys. I think there's been some some real good clips of quality football. I think there's been some inconsistent clips as well. I think there's more thumbs up than there are thumbs down. But one of the things we talked to the guys about, that's not ultimately how you're judged as a football player. You have to make sure that you're getting production with those. And so overall, Pat's one of those guys, one of the steadiest guys on our defense, one of those guys that when he's in the game, you feel you have a confidence level in terms of the ability for the other 10 guys around him to get lined up. He's kind of the quarterback back there, which is a unique quality, and one that is not talked about enough. I mean, for all of us as coaches, you want that guy back there. I think production has to come up. I think there's been a couple times just in coverage where kind of guilty of maybe being early, what otherwise could have been a PBU, and there was a flag I think a week ago, and in weeks prior to, and all of a sudden you're talking about having 8 PBUs as opposed to 4 or 5 or something along those lines. And so no, I think he included across the board defensively, and the thing that we just keep talking about is the consistency element of things. And we got to look at it too. Are we playing them too much and all those things? And that's something that you constantly evaluate, and making sure that the guys behind him, are getting that message as well, which I believe me that they are, to put quality film on, over the course of the week, so that they can play on Saturdays too. But no, I think again, the name of the game, you name the defender, and I'm going to use the word consistency, and that that consistent play needs to increase.
Okay, let's go to Mason Young with OU Daily and then John Hoover.
There was a lot of discussion last week about how Nick and John Michael complement each other at outside linebacker. Similar with Deshaun and David in the middle, just how have you seen those guys lead and also push each other in practice? And has there been any consideration about changing how you rotate or deploy those guys moving forward based on their success so far?
No, there will. I mean, I think, the better you play, the more reps that you earn, and I think specifically early on in the season, we've defaulted to the guys that have played the most reps. And part of that is just how preparation kind of turned out for us with all that went on in the call it fall camp and in the first couple of weeks of the season. We talked about, you got to coach the guys around that are available. And so, with that came just a real kind of significant snap count for the guys that had done it the most in the past. And once you get this far into a season, okay, now it's 2020. You're not talking about what guys did in 2019. And so in any event, no, we constantly evaluate in terms of rep counts and those things. The biggest thing for guys there too is to make sure that they're playing the consistent level to warrant, that one coming out of the game. And obviously, the one's got to play at a high enough level. If not, then maybe the best case scenario is that we throw numbers at it and throw multiple guys in there because one individual is not establishing themselves. But no, I think rep counts for all those guys, within reason will continue to go up, but always evaluating, okay, can we know we put an individual, whether it's you talk about the rush linebacker position, could first down, second down rotation, and then this is the guy that we're going to lean on in third down situations, if available, or vice versa. Same thing in the inside linebacker position. So no, I think that's something that's constantly getting evaluated.
Let's go to John Hoover with SI Sooners and then James Hale.
Alex, I'm just wondering about Woody getting into that playoff game last year. Can something like that leave scars on a young player, so to speak, to use your words from last year? And how do you think he reacted to that in the immediate term, like in winter workouts and once the season was over, that kind of thing? Did you see like a new resolve in him, or did he come out maybe a little gun shy, or was there something in between?
No, I would lean on your first comment. I think you saw a guy that gained some confidence, and who are whether I feel like he should gain confidence or anyone else should. The fact of the matter is I believe he as an individual did, and you're never, as a defensive back, you're one catch away from kind of being the GOAT type of thing. But no, I think he's a guy that as you went through his freshman year, got reps at so many different spots, and I think he just a comfort level in terms of playing in all those different spots. I think also with that, all of a sudden you move him to a cornerback spot, a little bit less thinking, which I think he kind of took to, and some of that is because you got the exposure in other spots. And you mentioned playing in a big time environment, kind of your first college football action, to be thrust into that. There's not a lot of guys that come out on the positive side of that in the moment, but no, he drew from that, and also it was a responsibility on our part to be have realistic expectations for what that was going to look like and feel like, and all those things. And so made it known to him to step up the way he did, and what was the overall. Please believe me, he wasn't the issue that night. I was the issue. I'll take the bullet, but he. Again, I want to say it a nicer way, but he's only going to get better. He's only going to get better. And so excited. I think he's in the right spot, but I still think he has position flexibility to do a lot of things for us.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Let's go to James Hale of KREF.
Alex, what TCU likes to do with the RPOs and the running quarterback that can pass and run, and some of the things they do off that, looks pretty difficult to try to handle. I know you handle it something like it every week, but talk about TCU and their offense and how difficult they are to try to handle.
Just multiple. That would be the where the plays might be similar, like you're saying. You kind of see a variation of it week in and week out, but the ability to do it with multiple tight ends and do it out of empty sets and do it out of without a tight end attached to the formation. Now there's a tight end attached to the formation. The use of motion. and speed of the quarterback. I mean, that's because now he can hit a home run. That makes it unique, as opposed to, well, we'll tackle him for a 3-yard gain. Well, no, if you don't get him early, he's the type of guy that can run away from you. And then obviously the speed on the perimeter, just the same. Those jets, they get motioning and they call it fly sweep for a reason. I mean, and they're flying. And so, and then once again, you got to make sure that you're holding up in the pass game. And so, no, they do a real nice job. And they've been doing a nice job for a long time down there.